As a member of the Board of Selectmen here in town, we just went through our budget session. We got a compromised budget from the state, and I think it was a real compromise to our budget. We're looking at a $2 to $3 million increase because Augusta's going to give us less after we've been to town meeting. We still don't get the funding we were promised for schools. We lost some revenue sharing. We're funding teacher retirements now. How do you stop that burden coming back to us? When are we going to stop spending elsewhere so that we can get what we should have? We meet executive session every 2 weeks. People looking for tax evaders because they can't afford their taxes. But we've got to go up to meet the demands that Augusta put on us. And I don't want to do any one person, but I'd like to hear what each of you has to say about that.
Well, Paul, go ahead first.
Well, I'll just stand so that you can go back in here, and I apologize for my phone. If anyone knows how to turn off an iPhone, just shout it out, I'll turn it off. Buzzing all over the place there. It's a good question, it's a serious concern, and I appreciate it. I live on the water, I pay a huge amount of taxes. In my community, there are people who are third or fourth generation that live in that community on the water, fishing village. And they're on a fixed income. My husband and I have been fortunate enough to both be able to have jobs and save our money, and we're going to be fine. We'll be able to pay the taxes. But I'm not so sure about people that live on the water that are on fixed incomes. They are land and house rich and financially poor by all standards. So it is a serious concern. It affects people in ways that we don't really know. And I'll tell you, going door to door, you really see how people live. And what you see on one side of things is what they're putting out there for you to see, but when you go to their home and they're not expecting you, is another whole ball game, and it's immensely humbling to be around that. So you see the needs that are there. The problem that I see is that financially, and I guess I just witnessed this firsthand serving in 2006, our finances are just stretched so far. If you can just imagine a rubber band that has just lost all of its elasticity. There's no place to bounce back. And people that have money are leaving the state, and we have more people coming in that are enrolling in programs that are costing all of us in this room money, which a lot of us are very willing to pay for people that truly need it. But the ones that don't, and I again go back to door, you take a look who's in their pajamas at 1 o'clock in the afternoon watching TV, and you go to the door and open it, and you're blasted by smoke coming out. And why are they not working? When you've got an elderly person that lives right down the street that could easily lose her farm. So there has to be a balance. We have to stop spending more than we're taking in. And until we do that, it's going to be very difficult to get money out of Augusta, because there isn't any money to get out of Augusta. And it's a myth if people think that there's money up there just sitting, waiting to be passed out to the towns. And unfortunately, we've lived outside of our means for quite a while. And now we're feeling the pressure of that. And respectfully, I say I'm sorry that you're feeling that, and that the towns in this county and throughout the state, it's not just you. It's from Kittery to Aroostook County that's feeling this. And it's devastating to some communities, because it means layoffs in schools, right down to the bus drivers. You know, it's devastating sometimes. And I don't think that we see a lot of that because we're here where we have we do have some of the finer things. Go up country. We have property up in St. Francis. If you think that you've got problems here, go up country. It's another whole world. And truly, it is our business what happens up there. We're all cut from the same cloth, and we all feel it in our own way. So, what I would say is that there is no easy solution to that. And anyone that says that there is an easy solution, there isn't. And we could go up on taxes, we absolutely could. But where is that going to get us? It's going to get us right back to where, because eventually that money wears out. I mean, if I thought for 1 minute we could just go up on taxes and it would be over with, but it won't be over with. We're just going to be mired in deeper. We've got to start living within our means of what we can live with and not be dependent on Augusta to give it to us. And that's really tough. That's very hard to do. And I have a daughter on the school board, and I would listen to her go on and on and on and on and on. And I would think that those cuts need to be made. They're painful, they hurt, but I can remember when my husband and I wanted to open up that business at the shopping center. We sold the boat that he had had since he was a kid, a little sailboat. We sold our second car and got rid of it and committed to walking. Got rid of a lot of things. We've had times where we've canceled the cable TV. I mean, truly just went down through the list of things that we have and thought, all right, we've got clear choices here. We can get rid of it or we can keep it. What can we afford? And what are we bringing into this house? Living within our means. And thank God that kind of thinking has sustained us. So now in our senior years, we probably will get through this. But that would be I'm sorry that took so long, but I think it's a very important question that you're asking. It needs to have conversation, and thank you for bringing it up, because it's right there in everybody's mind. We see it every single day. We talk about it with each other, but it needs to come right out in public that these are issues that need to be addressed.
Would you like to speak about that?
I would. I'm going to stay seated if that's okay. The up and down isn't so great for my back. If anybody has trouble hearing me, just let me know. With all the respect to my Republican opponent, I'm not going to judge somebody whose door I knock on by the fact that they're smoking cigarettes or in their pajamas at 1 o'clock. There's a variety of reasons that may be, and it's not my place to put that judgment there. To answer your question, I believe that development begins at the community level. And one of the things that we need to do is to communicate better with our communities. I have committed, if elected, to holding town hall style forums in each of the towns on a rotating basis. There's 12 towns, one of them uninhabited. Maybe that would make a nice summer place, but and reconnecting supporters and reconnecting the citizenry with its representation. And I think that's where it starts, is with the dialogue, with hearing about the problems that the town is facing and being able to discuss those. So starting that development of the community. The other is, going door to door. What I've heard from people is, I'm willing to pay my taxes if they're spent right. And cutting programs isn't always necessarily the answer. Sometimes cutting bureaucracy out of the bureaucracy is the answer. So what you find is the unusual green candidate who's going to tell you that I believe in smaller government that's more efficient, and that we can regain some of our losses that way. We need to pay teachers a fair wage, but we also have school administrations that are extremely heavy in administration. And by cutting that administration, we could redistribute that money to teachers without having to raise those property taxes. We also, in talking to Betty, was one of the things she brought up was the importance to Richmond residents in keeping green spaces green, keeping local spaces green. In talking to an individual who lives on my road, one of the issues that he brought up also was the foreclosures that are starting to show up in neighborhoods where they typically weren't there before. In our neighborhood, we have community members who go up and take care of the property. This keeps our property values up, it keeps pride in the community, and it allows us to pay those taxes. We need to hold the banks accountable for the foreclosures that they're creating, for the people that they're putting out on the streets, but also for the properties, that maintaining those properties and keeping our communities in the state where we can have pride in them and where we can keep those property values up. So it starts with communication, it starts with cutting out the fat and streamlining government, and it starts with looking at places where we're spending that we don't need to be. And by doing that, we are able to balance the budget a lot better, I think, than this past legislature and the governor have. So that's how I would answer your question.
Eloise?
Thank you. I also have heard comments around this issue out on, as I meet people at their doors, concern about property taxes is one of the major issues that people raise. So first of all, I would say that, you know, it's important that the state government keep to its promises, and I think you need to recognize that the revenue sharing would have been a lot worse had the governor's wishes been allowed to go forward, and that the budget that was indeed passed, and passed twice, reduced that pain that would have been there otherwise. So that's one thing. I think we need to, you know, when we say that we're going to do revenue sharing with our towns so that they can do their planning and set their budgets, we need to stay true to that word. Similarly with the school funding, you know, the 55% of school funding, we've not reached it yet, but it's been set out there as a goal, and it's one of the ways that towns can look to keep their costs down and keep their schools going. And I think it's an important principle that we work towards, so that education, again, can be provided at a baseline level throughout the state. So it doesn't matter whether you live in Kittery or Worcester County. So I think keeping to the 55% goal for funding education is an important way of resolving that problem. I would agree that there are probably still some efficiencies at all levels to reduce some of the costs. I think our towns have really, from what I can see, have done a good job already to find efficiencies and to look for regional partnerships to cut costs in that kind of way. I would agree that the community is a way to also start to generate ideas. I don't think that, you know, saying straight out that we can't raise taxes is necessarily going to be part of the answer either. I think if we haven't raised taxes, reduced taxes rather, on the wealthiest citizens, we would have some additional resources that we could have shared with the rest of the communities. So it's a complicated question. It is part of, you know, when you push a balloon and the air goes out on one side, there is that issue. But I think this legislature in particular took some strong steps towards keeping the damage from getting much worse.